Welcome to the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and here's our review for the June releases from Corvus Belli for Infinity. As ever, a new month brings a new set of toys for Infinity players across the world, and this month is no exception. For June, several of the releases are actually repacks of existing minis, so we're not going to be talking about those. Instead, we're going to look at the new minis and the new sculpts which are coming to a store near you soon. First up, we have the Bluecoat adhesive launcher. Now here's a guy who's never far from a weapon. The style of the miniature, it seems this is either something I'm going to love or hate. For me, it's everything an Infinity miniature should be. Dramatic, characterful and dynamic. The lore of the Bluecoats has them as the naval law officers for O12, present on any spacecraft in the human sphere. The Bluecoats have a reputation for being capable, if somewhat violent, keepers of the peace and enforcers of the law. In-game, the Bluecoat is available in Vanilla O12 or the Star Marder Sectorial. Moving on to their stats, Bluecoats have a fairly standard light infantry profile with an above average CC, which is set at 20, a below average Fizz of 10, and upgraded BTS of 3. This means your average Bluecoat can do some work in close combat, has a bit of protection against non-standard attacks, and is as likely to fall on his face as he is to gracefully sail out of the way when dodging. Where this unit starts to come alive is in equipment, skills and loadout. First equipment, a biometric visor. This enables you to ignore the -6 modifier for discovering a unit at the deepest level of impersonation. Situational, yes, but not a bad tool to have. In special skills, the Bluecoat has got a handy +3 to discover rolls. That will put your base camo and impersonation discover checks at 16 or less. Not bad at all. Even when modified by cover and mimetism levels, still worth having. They also come with +1 damage to CC attacks and Natural Born Warrior, enabling your average Bluecoat to ignore all levels of martial arts. The extra damage sounds nice, but as damage comes from the unit's pH value, this only buffs their CC damage to 11, so not stellar. Sixth Sense stops your Bluecoat from getting nasty surprises, and Courage lets you make the call on when your Bluecoat does and doesn't fail gust checks. Nice, but again, not show-stopping. However, where this particular mini comes to life is in the loadout and points. Armed with 2 adhesive launchers, ADHLs, a heavy riot stopper and para-CC weapon, this guy is all about the glue all the time. This loadout lets you fire 2 ADHL shots at +3 BS from 8 to 16 inches. If the enemy is closer, then the heavy riot stopper fires a large teardrop template of adhesive goodness. But if you really like to get up close and personal with your Gorilla Glue, then the para-CC weapon also has an adhesive effect. No matter which of these 3 that you hit your target with, they'll need to make a pH -6 save or become immobilized. Whilst in this state, they may only declare a dodge at a -6 modifier. No other skills can be selected. Failing the roll means they remain stuck in place. The only other way out of it is to get an engineer to the affected unit and complete a whip check. This one little guy can happily spend the day supergluing tags and heavy infantry to the floor, generally giving them a bad day. And how much does he cost? 13 points and 0 SWC. Our next release is the Bultrak for Morats. So what's the best thing to do with a seriously angry monkey? Strap it into a huge robot and send him off to pick a fight. And so that's the Bultrak. As with the Bluecoat, this mini has been a little bit divisive in the community. The Morat dangling from the underside is something you're either going to love or hate. I've been always on board with the little arm sticking out of the man tag, so this works for me, and also shows how bonkers your average Morat is, although I can see some of the comments people make anyway. There's no real surprises here. The Bultrak is playable in either Vanilla Combined or the Morat Aggression Forces. Stats-wise, the Bultrak is on the heavier side of tags, with a nippy 6'4" movement coupled with a very Morat super jump skill. The Bultrak is going places. CC of 17 means it's not a slouch in close combat, the BS of 13 is not too bad, and a Fizz of 15, modified to 11 for dodging, is about standard for a tag of this size. Whip 12 isn't a shock for a pilot who lets himself get strapped into a unit like this, and the Arm of 7 is nice, not too bad. BTS 6 is pretty strong, and structure of 3 is standard. Equally, Silhouette 7 is pretty normal for this type of unit. Skills and equipment have a few nice surprises. The more usual tag tricks include the -6 mod to guided attacks with ECM, and +1 damage to BS attacks, plus tactical awareness and the irregular order that generates. The interesting, very Morat additions include the pre-mentioned super jump, veteran and religious troops. So as with all Morats, your Bultrak is never running and doesn't care if your lieutenant gets fragged. The most interesting special skill comes from NCO, although this is mostly useless in Morat aggression forces as you should be running Cornac as your lieutenant. It's pretty useful if you decide to run your Bultrak in vanilla combined army. Being able to use the LT order as a regular for this monster is a nice perk. Before I get onto the main tag weapons, a special mention goes out to the pilot who, if you let him get out of the tag, is a specialist carrying both grenades and a Vulcan shotgun. That's a shotgun which can cause continuous damage, i.e. it sets stuff on fire. Isn't that nice? Now to the main event. Your Bultrak comes with either a portable autocannon with +1 burst or with a hyper-rapid magnetic cannon. With the Bultrak's damage buff, those are both damage 16. Both weapons have their good range from 16 to 32 inches, but from there they differ slightly. The autocannon fires 3 armor-piercing explosive shells in the active phase. Get some good hits in and you're making your opponent make 9 saves at half armor. It's bad news for anyone. The autocannon is also anti-materiel, so you can pop holes in terrain or blow up enemy consoles with ease. The hyper-rapid magnetic cannon, by comparison, has better range brackets with a 0 range modifier from 32 to 48 inches, where the autocannon has -3. The HRMC fires burst 5 with either AP or shock ammunition, again at damage 16, making it more damaging against infantry than the autocannon, purely down to the large amount of burst. You do have the option to fire a single dual action anti-materiel shot with the HRMC, but that's kind of situational. This makes the HRMC more flexible and forgiving by comparison to the autocannon. Throwing 67% more dice than the autocannon with extra range makes it a more effective damage dealer as a whole. But against heavy infantry there is definitely a discussion to be had with the output of the autocannon. Points wise, the Bultrak comes in at 74 points for the autocannon, 71 for the HRMC, both with 1.5 SWC. And now we come to our first resculpt, Shinobu Kitsune for the JSA. So, who ordered the Ninja Extra Spicy? This mini is an update of the classic mini, which has been around for years. Whilst not bad, it's certainly not up to current standards. And so we get the new version with optional hat, that's important to accessorize in combat. And the new model has the same dynamic feel as the old one, but it has to be said her sword is a bit more chunky. It did not skip leg day. Anything she boops will be staying booped, but overall, she's a great update for the Japanese Successionist army. Shinobu has been around for a pretty long time. In fact, you can find her all the way back in Human Sphere N2 from around 2009. Although at that point she was an operative for Yu Qing, as this is before the events of Uprising in N3, and she was also a he, so something happened between here and there, but that's her business, not ours. Shinobu is playable in JSA and nowhere else at this point. In-game, Shinobu is a beast in close combat, what you'd expect from an Oniwaban of the JSA. Starting with the basics, she's a skirmisher with a 4/4 move, 1 wound and 1 armour with 3 BTS. Wit 14 and BS 12 are about where you'd expect them, but she does have a Fizz of 13, meaning she can dodge fairly reliably. To see what all the fuss is about, we need to look at her skills combined with CC stat. So, Shinobu has a CC of 25. For those unfamiliar, with stats over 20, you take the amount over 20 and add that to your dice rolls, with any result of 20 or more becoming a crit. This means that Shinobu can never score lower than a 6 in close combat. A dice roll of 1 plus the 5 over 20 gives you the 6. It also means that she'll be critting on dice rolls of 15 or more. So that's a 25% chance of scoring a crit. A nice start. Shinobu also has Martial Arts level 5, which gives her +3 to her CC stat. So that gives her CC 28 effective, meaning that her minimum dice roll is now 9 and that she crits on 12. So that's nice. She then, with Martial Arts level 5, she also gives her opponent a -3 mod in CC and gains an extra burst in close combat. Martial Arts level 5 also gives a +3 damage mod, but that doesn't actually really apply to Shinobu, as this only applies to weapons which use the attacker's Fizz value to calculate the damage, which this young lady doesn't have. That's right, the fun doesn't stop there. Shinobu comes with a monofilament CC weapon. This particular Terra comes with a fixed damage of 12. Not so great until you realise that monofilament weapons reduce the target's armour to 0. That means that any hits that anyone receives, they'll be needing to roll a 13 or more to block damage from this weapon. It's a 60% failure rate. But that's still not good enough. If your target fails a save against a monofilament weapon, they go straight to dead, no matter how many wounds or structure points they have. So, if you sneak up behind that full health tag, get those 2 delicious attacks off, and it fails a wound, which it's likely to do, it's gone. Not disabled, not 1 structure point gone, it's removed from the table. Yeah. But how likely is it that you'll get into a position to pull this type of shenanigans off? Well, as with every Oniwaban, it's very likely indeed. On top of all of the toys above, Shinobu comes with hidden deployment, mimetism -6, stealth and infiltration +6. That'll let you deploy up to the enemy's deployment zone on a roll of 19 or less. Fizz of 13 plus the +6 infiltration bonus gets the job done. You can then choose where she goes, make a note, and not leave a marker there. Hidden deployment means your opponent has no idea she's there until suddenly Shinobu, with monofilament close combat weapon. And when you do appear, she's packing mimetism -6, has climbing plus, a +2 dodge, and smoke grenades. Even when your enemy knows you're there, they still have to hit you. Rounding out her profile, Shinobu also has a combi rifle, pistol, and nanopulsar if you get bored of poking things with your monofilament close combat weapon. Though the nanopulsar is a nice addition, as it does let you drop down a small template which forces BTS, not armor saves. It's a nice to have and can wreak havoc on groups of enemies like fire teams. Unsurprisingly, Shinobu isn't cheap, coming at 44 points and 0.5 SWC with 1 wound, 1 arm. It's a lot, but used well, she can dish out serious amounts of pain. On her profile, you'll see that she's got 2 options, Standard and Lieutenant. For me, the Lieutenant profile makes little sense. If you deploy Lieutenant Shinobu in hidden deployment, then your army starts the game in loss of Lieutenant. So you need to put her down as a camo marker during deployment to avoid this issue. That's fine, but if you infiltrate as well, then your Lieutenant is at risk from turn 1 and you're not using a skill you've paid points for. Your enemy will know where she is, and a savvy one will probably have a fairly good guess that that's your Lieutenant because that's why you've put her down. So yeah, it's probably not worth taking the Lieutenant option and just using her as a cruise missile that starts at your enemy's nose distance from their deployment, rather than running the risk of having your Lieutenants assassinated in the first turn. Your mileage may vary, but for me, Shinobu's got enough to do without leading the army too. And so to our second resculpt, the Morat. Many years ago, when I was looking to move on from the Grimdark, I was looking at many systems, Infinity being one of them. Being ruled by the rule of cool, I looked for the most awesome miniatures I could find. And then, there she was, the Morat. Heavy tag for the human AI Aleph. 4 arms, a big gun, sword, combat heels and bunny ears. She was everything that other systems weren't. Totally bonkers and unique. I needed that mini, and so the decision was made. Now CB returned with a brand new mini for this iconic unit, and it best be a good one. Boy is it ever. The pose may be a little more static, but the new look Morat is much more intimidating and imposing than the old one. Still clearly based on the same idea, this new mini is a stunning addition to Aleph. In game, the Morat is the ultimate incarnation of the AI Aleph, a striding bringer of devastating action. The Morat is the strongest demonstration of Aleph's power. Named for the fierce entities of the storm which cause the oceans to foam in Hindu mythology, few enemies are able to weather her wrath. The Marat can be fielded by vanilla Aleph or the operations subsection of the SSS. In game, the Marat is one of the most expensive units available, and with good reason. She's a tricked out heavy tag with pretty much all the trimmings. Let's start with her stats. 6'4" movement will see her in your face really quickly, with the CC stat of 18 being impressive and the BS stat of 15 being just nasty. PH 17 means being hit by the Marat in CC is not pleasant, though the PH is modified to 11 for dodge rolls and 13 for gizmo kit heals. Her whip comes in at 15, which is very useful, as we will discuss in a minute. Arm 8 makes her a tough nut to crack, BTS 9 gives her protection from non-standard ammo and hacking, with 3 structure standard for tags. Moving to the equipment, the Marat comes with ECM, giving the -6 to guided attack, a multispectral visor level 2. Yeah, she ignores mimetism, smoke, and 0 visibility zones. And with that whip 15, that makes the Marat a fearsome camo hunter, able to discover most units in reasonable range at that 15 or 12 if you're in cover. Camo markers won't have many places to hide against this young lady. The rest of the special skills are standard tag fare. +1 damage to weapons, courage, tactical awareness for the irregular order, though remote presence and terrain total are nice additions. For those unfamiliar, remote presence gives the Marat 2 levels of unconsciousness, so removing 1 wound when she's down to 0 structure doesn't remove her from the table. You need to do it again and then she's gone. Not an easy task when you're dealing with a unit with 8 armor. Moving to the weapons, the Marat brings a multi-heavy machine gun, heavy flamethrower, nanopulsar, and AP close combat weapon. The multi-heavy machine gun lets you fire 4 shots with either AP or shock ammunition, depending on your target, or a single explosive antimateria round. Being hit upside the ear with a damage 16 explosive HMG round in ARO is no fun, let me tell you. But it's also good if you need to attack consoles or remove bits of scenery from your opponent's side of the board, etc. The heavy flamethrower and nanopulsar give you a selection of template weapons for anyone stupid enough to get that close, giving you the choice of making them take saves on either their arm or BTS stat, depending on which works the worst for them. The AP CCW is a nice touch. With the Fizz 17 and CC 18, it's a brave soul who takes on the Marat in close combat. Finally, let's talk about points and options. The Marat comes in 2 flavours, a regular version for 95 points and 1.5 SWC, or a Lieutenant version for 99 points and 2 SWC. The Lieutenant is definitely worth taking, as she comes with Strategio's level 2. This turns your LT order into a regular order, allows you to move a trooper between combat groups each turn without spending a command token, and lets you hold back 2 troopers during deployment, not just 1. You will likely need to take a chain of command trooper in your list if you take the Marat LT, but to be honest, it's 100% worth it. Strategios brings so many benefits to the army, especially when you're running the OSS, the sectorial version of LF. You've got a lot of heavy, expensive hitters in that army, so having the Lieutenant's Order turned into a regular one is too powerful to ignore, and free moving between combat groups, situational, yes, but useful, and holding back 2 units during deployment can't be overestimated, especially if you're running your Marat as one of them. You know, a lot of the time when you're running a heavy tag like a Marat, you'll also bring an engineer, and where you place your engineer, if you've held back your tag, where your engineer goes can kind of give the game away a little bit about where your tag's going. If your engineer's on the left flank, your tag's probably going there too, so being able to hold both of them back gives that mystery and that little bit more control to your deployment and keeps your opponent guessing. So Strategios is definitely worth having, especially in the level 2 form. Last but not least, we come to the latest member of Sprellerheimer's Winterfall, the Nokken. If you're a fan of the winter style PanOceania minis, then this is a lovely addition to your collection. Dramatically posed without bits dangling off the base all over the place, she tells a tale without being too crazy. In lore, the Nokken are a hit-and-run harassment unit for Winterfall, striking suddenly and decisively before melting back into the snow. Designed as a long-range penetration and recon unit, The Nokken are the surprise no one wants, and few survive. Unsurprisingly, the Nokken is available for vanilla PanOceania, Svalaheimer's Winter Force, and White Company for the non-aligned armies. Looking at their stats, the Nokken are everything you'd expect from Pano light infantry: 4-4 movement, BS 12, whip 13, but with a nice 2 arm to go with their 1 wound. CC is 13 and Fizz only 10, so you're not booping anyone to death and you have only an average chance of getting out of the way of shots. But it's in the special skills the Nokken starts are rocking. With an 8-inch forward deployment and mimetism -6 plus terrain total, the Nokken will get in range with their Spitfire fast and dish out some pain. Spitfire is great in the mid-table, which is exactly where the Nokken starts. Coming in at 29 points and 1.5 SWC, the Nokken is a good investment if you want to harass your opponent in the midfield or protect some objectives on the midline. Overall, she's a great addition, one I highly recommend. And that's our review for the new miniatures dropping at the end of June 2022 for Infinity. Let us know which you're looking forward to the most in the comments, and if you disagree with any of our tactical assessments or have any questions, put them there too. That's all for today. Please like, subscribe and consider hitting the bell so you know when our new videos come out. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.